Sounds good.
All right. Hi there, everyone. It is the second Wednesday of the month. You know what that means. It's time for the focus, where every month we'll take a different training tool, program, software, learning resource of some kind and discuss it here in the focus with the creator or developer or other kind of genius. This month we're looking at Range Trainer Pro, and the genius that we have reeled in to talk about it is the one and only KL Cleeton. So KL, thank you for joining us. I know you've come in and talked to our premium members before, and we're big KL fans and big Range Trainer Pro fans.
Well, that's why I'm back. I need to have my ego, padded a
That's
bit.
right. Yeah, you know where you can go and have a good time.
Exactly. I mean, I'm not gonna, you know, do any wind up here. I think it's easiest if we just jump right in and get going.
I love it. Yeah.
And
And
so
everyone
guys,
just jump in. If you've got questions or if you want something, if you want KL to look at something in particular, don't be shy.
yeah. So I'll just start with a basic overview of the site, the application, what it does, what it will do soon, and what we're working on. Um, so for those that don't know, it is we designed this originally as a pre-thought range study tool. Um, and basically our original offering was what you see right here. It was about 900 individually sold pre-flop ranges, ranging from raise first stand to facing a three bet to facing an action in front of you and how you respond, and then some three-way stuff with overcalling and squeezing. And basically, it came from an idea of everybody had ranges, but nobody had a good way to study them and absorb them. And so I wanted to fix that. So while we had the ranges here, and I'll just, open up, say, a 30 big line hijack opening range, is what you would see. This is all well and good, but what's really the powerhouse that we started with was our range trainer, which, for lack of a better way, it does exactly what it implies. You choose what you want to study, and forgive my mess, I have a whole bunch of admin stuff
Yeah, you got the
in
back
here.
end open to you.
Yeah, exactly. But let's say that you're having trouble with 30 big lines from late position. So you could come in here, say, hey, I want to study a hijack cutoff and button on 30 big, hit go, and then it's going to give you 50 hands from those positions at that stat depth and ask you, hey, what should you do in this situation? Um, and you can adjust how many questions or how many situations you go through. I have it set to 50. But this was kind of the nugget of the idea. It was using this in a way that reflected actually playing the game. You weren't just staring at a chart, you were playing a hand. And we had a lot of success with this. We launched before really anybody else had something like this. Now there are, definitely some other people on the market, especially for pre-flop. But we were really happy, that kind of we set the bar, if you will. We created something that hadn't been done before, and now others are kind of copying it a bit, which is never a bad thing, but we were we were unhappy with just doing one thing well. We wanted to do many things well. So first up, we did some pretty interesting things. For example, we pioneered something called combo breakdown. This is a completely new way to visualize ranges. Instead of saying what position and stat depth you're at, we ask you, what hand do you want to learn more about?
Hmm.
So in this situation, I want to learn more about 10-9 suited. All right. So I click 10-9
Wow.
suited, and I can see what GTO wants to do across every stat depth and every position that I have in my database. And so obviously you can see that 10-9 suited is playable from literally everywhere at every stat depth. Like we're just never fooling it, which is something that maybe isn't immediately intuitively something you would recognize by going through and looking at the ranges individually. But being able to see it like this is a really cool way of visualizing it. Also, a hand like King Jack off or Queen Jack off, you can see that at the deeper stat depths, so down here, it's really essentially useless from EP and even middle position to a certain extent, from 60 big blinds to 100 big blinds. But once we get down into the 50, 40, 30 big blind range, it becomes much more playable from EP. Now, from a like a game theory perspective, the reason why that is because at 30, 40, 50 big blinds, we feel a little bit more comfortable going for three streets of value with like
Hmm.
top pair. Um, Obviously, top pair or even like middle two pair at 80 and 100 big blinds, we're just not super comfortable, going three streets and stacking off when we're really deep. But it's much easier to do so, at those middle stack depths. And then obviously we can see that, as they get shorter, it kind of loses some value at EP. But then, oddly enough, at 15 big blinds, for some weird reason, it gains value again. And so you can kind of make inferences about why it wants to do these things by comparing it to other hands in other situations. But you can go through here and really learn a lot about what certain hands want to do. I use race first in as the example almost always because it's where we get the most knowledge and understanding. Uh, but we are working on a 3-dimensional way to
Hmm.
view this, so we can look at facing and open. So like right here, we can see that Queen Jack off is really useless facing and open from anywhere at all. Period. Like it's a really bad hand to continue with unless we're like defending the big blind or peeling the small blind. But our next phase, and where I said like that 3-dimensional aspect is gonna come from being able to show you exactly how it responds based on what position has opened.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so
So it's
right
like
now you're getting
another layer that you can add to it.
exactly. So we're still working on the mechanics of it and how to make it actually usable and like kind of like user friendly. But that is something that we're excited about doing.
Okay.
But this is just the preset. Yeah, what's that, Jen?
No, so
So
first of all, when did you add this combo breakdown? Is that relatively recently, or has that been there for quite a while? Because I think that is so cool.
it's been there for quite some time. And I just noticed I don't have the chat open.
Oh, that's okay. I'll
I'm
keep an eye on the chat. So far, I just put the link
There
out
we
there
go.
for folks to
Perfect.
folks to get it. Because
So it
I've been
is
skipping. I love Range Trainer Pro, and I've just going right down to the range training. I haven't even checked out this combo breakdown, but like You said it, man. You can develop some real good heuristics when you look at that and see how the different stack depths refer to the different values of that particular hand. Like that's really powerful stuff.
Yeah, it really is some cool stuff. And it just makes it, it lets you see it from a macro level, um, as well as, it's macro in that it shows you every position in stack depth, but it's micro in that it's just that one combination.
Hmm.
Which obviously, if you're wanting to see just one situation, but every hand combo, then you can, view it in this manner, obviously. So we kind of have it covered from both ends. But like I said, we were really unhappy with just doing pre-flip. We wanted to do more than one thing well. And so we started doing something that basically nobody does it unless they have millions of dollars. And we don't have millions of dollars. Um, but I'm really proud of it because it's something that is as good as any of our competitors from a content perspective. But it is, depending on, like what competitor you're looking at, we're about 66% cheaper than anybody else.
Well,
So let me show you what I mean. Post flip is exactly what it sounds like. It shows you a number of situations which we have pre-solved and put into our database and allows you to see what a solver would want to do across every conceivable flip. When I say every conceivable flip, I mean all 1,755 statistically unique flips.
oh, so you didn't
So
even break it down into the 184 or those smaller buckets of flops. You're crunching this for every single possible flop with like
absolutely,
743 and 742 and 752 and 753.
absolutely. In
Amazing.
fact, I can show you exactly what we have by going. So I just picked button I just
Yes,
picked
right.
button versus deadline, 30 deadlines, single race pot. That means that button opened, deadline descended, and now we're going to see a flip. And if I scroll down, it goes on and on
Yeah,
and on
that's amazing.
and on
That's
and
amazing.
on, and then we're at the bottom.
Oh, so I can see how this is slightly more sophisticated than me just doing pen and paper work, trying to sort
I,
of like Mac.
I would hope so. Um, but so let's say we want to look at the spot where it's 10, 7, 5. Here are the 10, 7, 5 spots. It has every situation. Now, obviously, let's say you're doing this two tone where the 10 and the 7 are the same suit. Doesn't matter if the 10 and 7 are spades, clubs, hearts, whatever. It doesn't matter. All that matters is that the 10 and the 7 are the same suit, and then the 5 is an offsuit, whatever. So we have all of those variations of 10, 7, 5 in the database. Rainbow, two tone, both two tones. I'm sorry, all three two tones, and monotone. So you can see right here, first one is rainbow. The second one has the 7 and the 5 suited. The third one has the 10 and the 5 suited. The third or the fourth has the 10, 7 suited. And then the last one is monotone. So let's just say that it's 10, 7, 5, 10 and 7 are suited. We select that hand. And now what we're going to have is a fair use delay. It's a 20-second delay. And this is designed with one thing in mind. Do not allow people to use the software to cheat.
In real
You
time, you
can't,
mean, like,
you
so
cannot,
people can't just play it while they're online.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So other places do things like have sidecar applications that you have to have open to see if, a poker client is running, or, the browser will look to see if, it has a client running. Like, that's really ineffective. That doesn't work because I can easily open this on another computer. I just have two computers going. Click over on one and cheat on the other. It's not that hard to circumvent. Ours, you can't circumvent. We've done some extensive testing. Essentially, what we found is if you really tried, you could RTA, you could real time use this for 3 hands before you completely run out of time bank. Not your regular time, but your extended time bank. So your 90 seconds or whatever it is that you have on, Poker Stars or ACR, Bovada, wherever it is that you play. Basically the maximum amount of time bank you get is 90 seconds. That means you should use this for 3 hands and then be at a time that cannot have any decision making time at all going forward, and also not be able to use this.
Well, good for you
Um,
for making that a part of it, because I know some companies out there would say, I don't care if people use it for cheating, buy
yeah,
my
exactly.
product. But you've taken a
Exactly.
real step here to protect the integrity of the game. So I think people should appreciate that.
And that's what we care about. We care first and foremost about the game. We want people to get better, which is why we have made a commitment to be the most affordable database on the market, but we also want people to get better in a manner that is good for the ecosystem.
Hmm.
Um, so let me just run through the same really quickly,
Yeah.
and then we can take some hands if somebody has, particular ones they want to discuss. So it is very simple. Once you've selected your situation, you literally play it like you would a game, a hand online. You select the action that the highlighted player it does. So in this situation, big blind never leads. Um, Up here we can turn on square size proportional, and what that means is it will show you the frequency per hand of how often the highlighted player actually gets to this point in the hand. So obviously, something like king five and king six, yeah, technically, big blind gets here sometimes with king six, but it uses king six as a three-bet bluff candidate. King six suited. I'm sorry. It uses king six suited as a three-bet bluff candidate pre-flop very often. So you can see that we only have a small, sliver here that it actually gets here. King seven suited is a pure three, according to our ranges,
Hmm.
based on what we've ran. So that's why sometimes you'll see some like random, boxes missing. Like ace five off, king seven suited. They're used as like pure three-bet bluffs or something like that pre-flop.
And if you're not
Um,
three betting bluffing with ace five suited, then come to talk to KL and I, because we've got some lessons for you.
yeah,
Honestly.
I mean, ace five off definitely. And ace five suited about 25% of the time.
Hmm.
So absolutely. Okay, so big blind is checking range here, and now we get to see what button wants to do. Down here below each action button, you can click on the cover below the action, and it will highlight just that action
Mm.
in the range viewer. So you can see a visual representation of how often, like, oh man, what am I doing a two-thirds pot C that year with? Well, it's a lot of overpairs other than aces. It's some like, well, it's a lot of top pair type hands. It's especially the unsuited variant. Um, and then if you want to get even deeper, you can click on a hand and see what each combo wants to do. So I'll turn that off just by clicking it again. We can see that Jack 10 is checking back very rarely, but when it does check back, it has basically no flush draw possible. And um, if it is going to check back, it has blockers, or it has a blocker rather, to the heart with the Jack of Hearts. Which I mean, I wouldn't have known that intuitively, but like,
Hmm.
I mean, it's a low frequency, but it's worth maybe not doing it in game because it's so rare. But maybe it's worth understanding why it does it. Um, and we can make inferences on why it would want to uh, continue. Maybe the Jack of Hearts holding that means that it changes the midline's calling range significantly enough to where they only call with value or call with value a lot more often and don't have as many floats because they don't have as many backdoor draw capabilities. Um, but you can see you can get really deep into this. Like here's one. King 3 suited is nearly identical across every combo of
Hmm.
King 3 suited, other than King 3 of hearts with the backdoor heart draw. Like, it's checking the back door way more often, but it's betting clubs, diamonds, and spades
Yeah,
at
that's
identical.
weird.
Yeah,
Because
but yeah,
and so if people aren't what's crazy about that, so it's taking the same line with King 3 of spades, which is the flush draw hand, that it is with clubs and diamonds, and it's only the back door that it's treating differently.
absolutely. So the reason why is, remember, solvers care about balance. That's what they want. They want balance. So the sizings are slightly different. Um, a small bet with the spade draw is much less often, and instead it's 2/3 pot with the spade draw. However, we're still betting with the same frequency overall, but the quarter pot is now the dominant bet sizing with clubs and diamonds, and the 2/3 is the less dominant. They kind of flip there, if you can tell based on the colors, which is really interesting because essentially what's happening here is it's using these non-spade draw, non-back doors as pure bluff candidates in order to balance A, other king three hands, and B, the rest of the range. So, the time that we just flop like top there without, backdoor Netflix or something like that. Um, or we have an overpair with a spade or an overpair without a spade. For we want to balance those out. It's just using hands like this as a way to do so. But you can really dive in super deep here. I'm gonna go ahead and just choose a clear pot because that's what like my default would be for the most part. And we can see here that Big Blind is defending nearly exactly half the time. It's raising about 20% of the time, and then folding the other 30 um, of its range. And again, we can come in here and see the types of hand it's peeling with, the types of hands it's just straight up folding, and then the types of hands that it's raising here as as a bluff or for value if it has some check raises. We can see obviously that basically all the check raises are either top pair or um, soft flush draws.
Hmm.
So, or soft backdoor draws. Um, so Jack 4, for example, it's raising its flush draws to 75% pot essentially all the time. You know, it's raising large 80% of the time and then raising small the remainder of the time, but always check raising its flush draws. And the same can be said for a hand like Queen Four suited, which is interesting here because Queen Four suited, but not Queen Four hearts, um, like it was with Jack Four. And it's very interesting the way these hands break down and why it wants to do things and doesn't want to do others. Um, and obviously, sometimes you're gonna know or have a good guess as to why GTO wants to do something, but other times you're gonna be like, I had no idea. Like I legitimately don't understand. But that's kind of the point. The point isn't to look at this from a hand that you played and say, oh, I made the right play. The point is to look at this and understand why something is done. And so whenever you do find this thought that you're like, I had no idea why it's doing this, that's when you gain the most from using our tool. Because you can talk to poker friends, or if you have a coach, or you're a member of a training site that has open sessions or whatever. You can talk to somebody who you know you respect their opinion, and you can work that out together and try to learn either from them, and if they don't know, or they're like, oh wow, I wouldn't have assumed that, then you can learn together as well. I can't tell you how many times Ryan has looked up a spot live in a group session and then like, well, I think GTO is going to do this, and it does almost the exact opposite. And then he's like, oh, well, it's doing okay. Now I get it. It's doing this because of A, B, or C, and we kind of get to challenge our assumptions, and that's why this tool is valuable. And I always tell people, if you're just using this because you want like affirmation that you made the right play in game, because oh, it's a low variance play. I mean, yeah, you can do that. That's fine, but that's not where you get the most value. You get the most value by questioning your assumptions.
So let me ask you about that, Kale, because
Mhm.
this tool has two great ways to use it. This is the way where you can kind of dig into the details of a particular spot and
Mhm.
learn everything about that particular spot. And I think for some of our players, um, when they're trying to like go over a hand that they were in specifically, this would be a great way to review. Or if they're going through Poker Tracker and they've tagged a bunch of hands and like they have a few spots that come up with things in common, they can open this up and kind of look at those spots in common. And then there's the actual training,
Yeah,
the drilling
it's
stuff, which I think most of our
absolutely.
recreational players like the way that you guys allow it to be visualized and the way that we can get these reps through these situations. I think is phenomenal. I think that's probably where
So
mostly
I
when I
want
use it,
to,
I'm just drilling. I
and
want to get those ranges down.
and that's what I want to show you now is I showed you the prefab portion of the range trainer, but there's something new. There's something called see a flop.
Mm.
So what is see a flop? Well, let me get to a spot where we're actually going to see a flop, where we have it solved. Here we go. So
Oh, so you get to define the action that's going to happen after your raise. This is cool.
so we opened we opened MP with sides, and now we want to train this side. Um, the easiest way right now I'm going to show you the one that like is going to guarantee me that we actually get the start. But I'll explain why in a moment. So we're going to say deadline defends, and we see a thought. We hit select, and now it's going to give us a random slot that we're going to get to play. And that is a bit of a glitch because the dealer button is on top of the top side,
Oh,
at the top of the table. Oops. So the
make a
top is
note.
the top is 61 chips.
There you
But basically, what it's going to do now is have us play the hand. We can see right here, deadline is done, they're highlighted in red, and they checked. So, what should we do here? I'm going to say we should check. And if you didn't hear it, it gave me a little ding saying that, hey, that is correct.
go. Hmm.
Down here, we can see that there's a text string that shows us the action
Ah.
options that were there and the frequency with which we should take each option. So check was 83.5% what we should do, do that 83% of the time. We can also hit the history button on the bottom right. And it's going to give us a table here of the situations from this session. And we can view the range by hitting the view on the far right. And then we have pocket fives. We come down here to pocket fives. We hover over it and we see, oh, yep,
Wow.
that's a visual representation. We should bet 25% pot about 15% of the time and check the remainder. So, you know, it's very user friendly.
And it's really
Um,
comprehensive. Like I use Range Trainer Pro quite a bit, and I'm still every time we talk KL, I find like new aspects of it that I'm not even drilling down into in my day-to-day use. This is crazy. This is like a stats nerds heaven here.
Absolutely, that's what we're trying to do. So in this situation, we saw a term. It gave us a random turn code. It's an offsuit 7. We now have pocket fives with an up-down draw, although the up-down is kind of crappy because if we do hit our 8, we lose to quite a few combos
Hmm.
of 10x. But I'm going to assume we're never folding in this situation versus a 25% pot lead. So I'm going to say we call. It gave me a ding saying, yes, that was in fact a decision that was on the decision tree. It's going to load a river card. It's going a little bit slow right now because I'm actually moving a bunch of new solutions onto the database.
Hmm.
So normally it wouldn't be this, kind of loady time, but right now we're adding a bunch of stuff. So in that situation, we were supposed to just call basically always
Hmm.
98% of the time, which is right. Now we see the absolute ace and deadline checks to us. This is a wonderful card to bluff. We really don't have any showdown value. I'm going to assume that we lose to basically everything. And really, what we're trying to do is get them to fold like a 7, maybe even some like, random nines, like really bad nines, like clean 9 off or something like that. And so I'm going to assume that we should go relatively large. I believe the pot is 90 something or other. Again, I'll make a adjustment to that and fix it. I'm gonna say we should just go pot here. Yeah, because pot is right here, 91. Oh no, it was wrong.
No,
That
no.
sucks. Well, let's find out. Let's find out what I should have done. Like I said, there's a table here. If you're a Excel type person or somebody who looks at data this way, you can do so. But if you're more of a visual person, we can come in here. Oh wow, fives are a pure check back. Like they're just never doing anything but checking back, almost always. I understood the same correct in my assumption.
And Kale, it's what it's basically saying is that there are other better candidates to make that bluff with
And
instead
absolutely,
of fives.
absolutely. So something like, um, something like, let's see, Jack 8 is a really good combo because we brought some combinations of value that they will snap us up with, and we obviously we don't have any showdown at all. What I'm guessing is happening here is it views stars as having just enough showdown that we can beat um, some like random straight draws that didn't hit. Like they turned a straight draw that obviously bricked off on the ace. And then some like just random king and queen eye stabs on the turn. Which I mean that makes sense to me. Like, all right, it views size as having just enough showdown that it's worth, taking it. Um, Taking it to showdown. Which I mean, I guess I can get behind. Like, I would probably in game as an exploit make an adjustment and try to get a 7 or maybe a bad 9 to fold. But I don't hate. Obviously, in a field of sickos, if I was playing Stevie Chidwick again, then I would stick to GTO and just check that method and and hope to beat King High.
Yeah,
Um,
maybe in some of our rec games, a big bet you can get some people off some of those hands, some of those one pair hands, and so I like that.
absolutely, absolutely, and that's why this is important because I just explained to you why I would make a different decision than what this wants to do. This wants to do this because it assumes um, it assumes our opponent is playing perfectly
Right.
as well, and almost never is that the case. Now I notice there's a question about importing hands. So right now that isn't a feature that is in the public version. But we are working on making it something that can be done. Right now, the limitation is twofold. A, we want our database to be more robust. So let me navigate over here to Postflap. And right now, these are the situations that we've solved. So we have everything in 20 big blind single raised pots, basically every imaginable situation has been solved. The same for 25, nearly, we're missing like two, but they're actually in the process of being solved right now. And the same goes for all these other situations as well. All the way up to 80. Essentially, the reason you see they get fewer and fewer the higher in stat depth that we do, that's because they get way more complicated. And when they get way more complicated, they get way more expensive to solve. Um, and when I say expensive, obviously I mean dollar value, but more importantly, I mean time.
Yeah.
It takes a long time to solve. So, for example, right now I'm doing a ton of 60 big blind single raise pot situations. They're running on 10 servers right now, 24 hours a day. But one of these situations, so this is hijack versus big blind, this situation to do all these flops takes about 2 months to run them.
And that's just
And so
running like in some cloud servers or something, or just running that in the background while you're going about your business for 2 months, just crunching all that in the background.
So yeah, we had multiple dedicated servers that we built that we actually own and are in our house eating up, or in our homes eating up electricity, and then we have a few remote servers that we run as well at server facilities based on specs that we've provided. But essentially, at the end of the day, the servers that we run on are, if you were to build them yourself, because we have done it. They're about $4,000 to build per server. And then obviously all of the time, because you can only run one situation at a time. And so basically what we're focused on right now is building out this database to, to be more robust. At the end of the day, what we want is this entire page to be completely full across every stat depth. And then what we will do is we're also going to add 50 big lines. So there isn't that jump between 40 and 60. And then we're going to run 100 big lines. Beyond 100, it's going to get really exciting because we're going to run both tournament and cash game.
Oh.
So we're going to move into the cash game realm as well, which will be really, really fun. Beyond that, then the additional kind of phases we're adding are doing ICM. So we will do shorter and medium stacked solves with ICM
That makes sense.
calculated in. So we'll do like 30 big lines in shallower. So we'll do like 30, 25, 20, and then maybe even 15 and 10. And we'll run it post flop based on ICM where it's a final table type situation with standard, what you would consider regular payout structures, 20% up top, 10 to 12% per second, so on and so forth. And those are really, really exciting because, as far as we know, nobody's done these in an ICM scenario. And we've done some test runs just from our test bench, and it is amazing the difference you see. Some stuff that you would never do when there's no ICM involved. You do some crazy stuff when there is ICM involved, and it's actually really very exciting to be able to study that. But now that I've shown you kind of the I'm sorry, Evil Roy, a member of LPT and poker coaching, awesome at very. So our ranges are LPT ranges.
That was another question. Actually, I got a DM in here. So how are you using like an equivalent to PO solver or something to actually solve
So
these?
we ran these with Munker. We had a German stable outfit that we consulted with, and we ran them in consultation with them for Munker. And so you can see right here all of our pre-flop ranges. And I guess I should go through these subscription options. When you go to the webpage, rangetrainer.com or rangetrainer.app. So we have two subscription options. One is Range Trainer 3, which is just the pre-flop ranges and the pre-flop training tool. And the link is in the chat as well.
Yep, just drop it in there.
So that gets you access to everything pre-flop And the ability to add your own ranges if, for example, you wanted to add some like, exploit type ranges that you've, created yourself based on experience. And the pre-flop sub is either $40 a month, or you can do a pretty big discount if you pay for the year. It's $360 a year, which works out to $30 a month. However, range trainer post is when you get everything. You get all 900 plus pre-flop ranges and the entire post-flop database and the range trainer for both pre-flop and post-flop. So you can essentially train an entire hand from beginning to end and effectively simulate playing poker. I mean, it's not quite the same as playing against a real person, but it's pretty damn close.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is either 840 a year, which is $70 a month, or it's $89 every month if you want to do month to month. So again, you get a pretty big discount on top. However, right now, Red Poker has an additional 20% off. It's in the chat right now. We're only offering that for through the end of the week
Yeah,
for you
just till
guys.
Friday. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, it doesn't get really any cheaper. Um, if if you were to go to a competitor, you're gonna pay probably $300 a month for a similar product. Um, and also, they've I it's unclear whether they are continuing improvements, developing a larger database, adding features, things like that. Our site is very much living and breathing. That combo breakdown that I showed you that Jim was doing, kind of like nerding out over, that was actually a joint venture between an idea that we had and suggestions from one of our members.
Huh.
Somebody was looking for a new way to view ranges. We happened to be working on something kind of without anybody knowing, is there a better way we can do this? And when they asked, we were like, well, actually, we've been working on something. Do you like this? We added it to their account. They freaked out and loved it. We're like, well, I guess we have to add it to everybody. So the reason I bring that up is because we are we're made by poker players for poker players. It's not kind of a, oh well, we've done our thing, we're hanging up. We continue to build out the database, build out the feature set, and obviously it's all based on feedback. Now somebody asked about multi-way situations. So let me answer that in two parts. No, it does not do multi-way right now, but it is something we are actively working on. Right now, the limitation is on the solver technology.
Hmm.
There is a way to do it, but it is, let me rephrase that. There is a way to technically do it, but it is not in practice feasible at this time. And that's not just like us, that's basically everybody. So there are some pieces of software out there that will allow you to do three-way solves. I had some issues with the algorithms
Hmm.
of that software. I do not think they are as good as they need to be yet.
Hmm.
Doesn't mean they can't get that way. I'm sure they will improve, but until I'm confident that what it's spitting out is really good data, we're not going to give it to somebody and say that it's good. Everything that we do is designed to give our users maximum information that is actually usable.
Mhm.
And a really good example of that, actually, there's two. You'll notice that all of our pre-flop ranges are for 8 max. That's because all pre-flop solvers cap out at 8 max. So
Mhm.
like Milker or something like that, it's a limitation of the software. Now anybody that gives you 9 max ranges, essentially what they're doing is they're taking 8 max ranges, adding it under the gun, and making it up. They're kind of they're kind of like guesstimating. You know, no, it's an educated guess. It
Yes.
is. It's a very good educated guess, but it's not something that a solver spat out
Mhm.
and said this has been tested over billions of hands to be, mathematically perfect. And because of that, we don't want to guess. We want to give you what we know has been stat out by something that is based in good fundamental logic and understanding. Nothing more, nothing less. Another really good example is our post-flop database. We
Mm.
we consulted with quite a few people on it when we built our trees. A tree is basically, yeah, I hope this full EP at 9 and 10 handed. Exactly. There is no range preflip for EP 9 and 10 handed because we're so disposed anyway. Like, it's not even really poker at that point. It's just a net fast, right? But so post flop trees, and a tree, for those who don't know, it's basically just all of the different decision points that exist in the game based on what you've told the solver. So how many flop bet sizes do you have? How many turn bet sizes do you have? How many flop and turn raise sizes do you have? Those are all decision points on the tree. What we've done is we've worked with players like Jonathan Van Fleet and Jason Kuhn to build a post flop tree that is robust. It's very full featured in that it has multiple bet and raise sizes, but it's not so large that you can't actually implement it. So some people had like some products had like 9 CDAT sizings. There's
Right.
no way that you can implement 9 CDAT sizings in your game effectively. It's just not possible. It's not because somebody isn't good enough. It's because the human brain is only capable of balancing so many things at one time. Because if you have 9 CDAT sizings, and then you have say 5 or 6 term sizings, you're talking about 56 or more different ranges you have to be able to keep in your head in order to have balance. It's physically impossible. Anybody who tells you otherwise is straight up lying. It's just not valuable. So what we've done is we've given you 3 CDAT sizings, sometimes 4 if the stack to pot ratio is shallow enough that a jam is warranted.
Mm.
So we'll turn on a jam sometimes and turn it off other times, depending on how deep we are. And then we have 2 flop raise sizings. This makes the tree actually usable and digestible, but it also allows you to see what GTO wants to do, given many options to help you learn and understand. So you're not just, you know, adding this stuff to your game and be like, well, GTO told me to do it. I'm just going to copy it. You're actually able to understand, oh, wow, it wants a large bet sizing with these types of hands, but it wants a small bet sizing with these other types of hands. That, you know, that is valuable intel that you can actually apply in game.
Nice.
So, I went on a lot about the product, and I know you guys generally, I believe you said are about an hour long,
Yeah.
which I ate up all of that time. But
No, this
as you
was the
can
good
see,
stuff, man. This is what we
there's a
wanted.
lot here. There's a ton in the application, and it's only continuing to grow. Um, if anybody does have a hand or something they want to go through, we can probably, fly through one in like 5 minutes. Otherwise, if anybody has obviously any questions about, how to do something, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that I didn't even get into as far as future features. But if anybody has any questions, please shout out now.
And I'm just going to put another link in the chat here. This is Keith Brandt's Wrecking Crew playlist on YouTube, and so he's
Hmm.
done some videos going over how to get the most out of Range Trainer Pro. And yeah, so Roger's got the first question out there already. Are there training videos? So um, KL, I think you've probably got some training videos on the site itself, and then these from Keith are also really helpful as well.
Yeah, so treats are absolutely amazing. They're super in depth and they go through everything. We do also have um, some walkthroughs. What I would consider is on our support site or on our support page. You just go to your top right, hit support. We have a basic walkthrough right here, which is a bit outdated, needs to be updated. But if you go to our YouTube page, you can go to our YouTube page and navigate there. We have this video called Using Range Pro as an Elite Study Tool. That is similar to what Keith did, where it's Ryan actually going through a training video and really showing how he uses it in real time. So hopefully that will help. I'll post a link
Nice.
to
And I
that.
think, and Kim says she did bring
Yeah,
a hands, middle position raise versus small position call. Kim, do you remember what the stack sizes were that you're
yeah,
trying to drill down
Can
into?
I unmute?
Yes,
yeah,
yeah,
you're
jump
good.
in.
Yeah. I mean, blinds are 500, 1K, 1K.
And you're gonna
I
how
think we're
deep it
pretty
is?
deep. I think we're pretty deep, but like we're not super deep, but at least think we're at least 30 big blinds deep.
Okay, so let me see what we can do here.
Is it single raise or 3-bet, Kim?
Single raised.
So we're gonna do MP2 versus Snowblind, very similar range. And what was the flip?
Flop is monotone, king,
Okay.
queen, 5.
King, Queen, 5, monotone, boom.
So
Here we
cool. I
go.
love how we can pull this up like this. That's amazing.
So going into this, now remember,
I mean, the big blind had called too, but we won't put that in because the big blind just folds to the C bet. So that's why
yeah,
I've got
and
just the
and
2
that's
in.
a really good way to think about it as well, because generally what happens is when the big blind does defend after small blind peels, oh did I? Oh shoot, I did. You are correct.
Aha, good catch, Roger
Whoops.
Shooty.
Let me
Got that.
see.
Look at that brain. I love it.
We may have to do MP versus small blind on 25 bigs. I'm actually solving the 30 big blind MP versus small blind as we speak. It's actually in the mix for being
We,
mixed up. We can do 25 and it'll be very
I'd go to,
similar.
can we go to 40? Is it in 40? Or, because I know we were still, or no, we
Oh,
can't.
that's 3
So,
bets still.
So yeah, so these are going to be getting into
so we don't
the
have
ones.
it versus small blind. Okay, that's fine.
Well,
We can do
well, here,
25 then.
let me show you actually, because this is a bit of the secret sauce.
Taking us behind the curtain.
Yeah, let me just get the right link here.
Kim, where's this hand coming from?
It's coming from our last game. You were there,
Our league game.
the league game.
So,
Yeah.
it's gonna look kind of like a cluster to you guys, but I promise it makes sense to me. So if you can see right down here,
Ah,
these are the Coco small blind stats on 30 big blinds, and the orange indicates that it's currently being sold, and the blue indicates that it's actually in queue to be sold. If it's green, that means it's now available on the website, good to go. But you can see
and those are a lot
40
of small
blinds,
blind spots. Yeah.
40 blinds is very similar. But 25, we do have a few available, and I believe we can load out the 25, and then we can see if there are any differences. And I'll tell you what I'll do. I will move whatever the situation is to the top of the queue, and I will send Jim a little video whenever it's done, explaining exactly what we should do on, say, 40 big blinds versus 25.
That's awesome.
Okay.
So
VIP service.
absolutely, just for you guys. Jen, it's your job to remind me to do that, though. Make sure I actually do that.
I'll get you a little follow up for that one.
Thank you. So we're gonna do no position versus small blind just for this situation. It's a non-tone flop, and we'll let the delay go. So we can see this is the small blind peeling range. I'm sorry.
Right.
Yeah, it's not very much. You can see it's really only three betting. You know, it's three betting quite a bit, but it does peel some. So what does small blind do in this situation? Did they check or
Yes, they checked.
okay? And then we are going to bet what?
We're actually the small blind, but that doesn't
Okay.
matter.
Okay, that's fine.
We are going to bet small. So it was 2,200 into 7,200.
Okay,
So that's pretty small.
That was
Um,
group and
Yeah.
as we can see right here, GTO is basically nearly an even split between checking back and betting.
Betting small.
Yeah, betting and clear bet. It's doing both, with basically every hand possible other than sides, which it is betting 100% of the time. But we will say that MP is betting small, and then this is small blind's reaction. We can
Okay.
see that we're folding about a third of the time, we're calling
Okay.
about half, and then
Can we,
yeah.
how do you click on the actual hand? They have ace jack offsuit. So if we look at what the distribution is, if they have the spade in, does that make a difference?
Yeah, absolutely. So it depends on which state it is.
It's the jack of spades.
Yeah, so the jack of spades is definitely the best candidate for check raising. It's by far the highest frequency. It actually check raises more often than the ace of spades.
Yeah.
Not that much, but definitely enough to be statistically significant.
That's cool.
So,
But they can still call more often.
Yes.
oh yeah, calling is overwhelming. So calling is in yellow here, and then obviously the raising is in the lighter brown, and calling is peeling the vast majority of the time across all combos. Is that what we want to
Okay,
do?
so
We wanna call here?
they do call. They do call.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And what was the turn?
Another 5.
Okay, so just the opposite side.
Yeah.
We will call it the side of diamonds because diamonds are girls' best friend. And right here, Snowblind is continuing to check range
Yeah.
100%. And now it gets kind of interesting because imposition is no longer, they do not double barrel snow ever. They either check back or they barrel 2/3
Mhm.
pot.
Okay.
So
Well, they didn't do either of those. They barreled just over 50% pot.
that's close enough to 2/3 that I think it will
Okay.
it will match.
Yeah.
So we'll say that's just a pretty solid line by villain, depending on what they had. And what do we do
Well,
here?
they're here. You can ask them.
Okay.
They don't
Uh-oh.
remember.
Was it
You
me?
don't remember this hand? Yeah, it was
Was
you.
I? Oh, okay.
Against- It was you against Elizabeth. It was
Oh,
the hand I
oh,
told her.
I see. Yes.
So it was so then the small, what is the small blind supposed to do with the ace jack offsuit to that bet?
So
With the
we're
spade,
folding.
with the jack of spades.
Oh, we're just pure peeling.
Yeah.
Just call,
It's
call,
Yeah,
just a
and
call.
she
pure call.
folded. Yeah.
Yeah, just a pure call.
I thought so. All
In
right, we'll have to
fact,
get her to watch this.
That's right.
absolutely. It's just a pure call. Do you remember what you had, Jim?
It wasn't me, it was my friend, and she had ace with and the jack of spades, and she folded to the.
What, and you said Jim was.
Oh yeah. Do I remember what
villain.
I had?
Yeah, do you remember what you had?
Jim, it was a club, king, queen, 5 of clubs. If that helps you.
I wonder. I feel like I either had the ace of clubs or king queen. I don't remember.
Okay.
Specifically, but I
Well,
think I probably had one of those.
Now that we have that information, let's go back and
See.
let's see
We don't know for
what
sure.
Yeah.
what should happen. So, if you had king queen, either off or suited, you're betting about 50-50
Mhm.
across the board. If you had an ace, um, if you had ace jack, ace 10 suited, you're checking.
Oh, it was probably an
Oh, wait, hold on.
offsuit. It would have been an
Another round,
offsuit ace.
another round to this anyway. So here we go. Now we're looking at your range.
Right.
So king queen is still about 50-50.
Or
Regardless of
Or it would have been
the
an
combo.
offsuit ace hand that just had the ace of the suit. It would have been a drawing ace. So one of
Yeah.
those with the ace of spades. Yeah.
So in that case, overall, you're basically also betting about half and half. But betting small, almost. No, not almost. Betting small always. But I
Mhm.
would say probably just splitting 50-50. At that point, you can just flip a coin and see what you want to do.
Hashtag it depends.
It depends exactly. Obviously,
You did bet
someone
small.
goes,
You did bet
Yeah.
small.
Yeah.
So
and then the turn was the opposite side, and Snowblind checks, and now we get into if you have the ace of spades, you're always
Yeah.
betting, and you're always betting 2/3. Basically every single time.
Yep.
If you have king queen, you're always betting basically period. I mean, yeah, technically there's some checkbacks, but this is such a high percentage overall
Mm.
that for simplicity, I would generally just treat this as a pure bet, just because it makes it easier to have that as a strategy in your
Yeah.
mind. And then what you should do is you should pure check a hand like Jack 10
Mm-hmm.
suited.
Mm-hmm.
A hand that maybe you're supposed to bet sometimes, but check most of the time. then you secure check that, and there's your balance.
And that's
right
just to
there.
make it easier in our brains, right? So that we can
Absolutely.
just lean. And if it's not like, and when it's like a 50-50, then it makes sense to kind of, let other factors guide you. But when it's like 80-20 or something like that, we're not supercomputers. Just go with the 80.
Exactly. And then what you can do is, what you'll find is by doing that, you're betting some things always, the other things that you would check most of the time that other times, you're just checking them always.
Mhm.
And so that's your balance.
Cool.
There's your balance that you're finding. And so, yeah, it looks like both of you guys, other than folding turn, which I'm never folding versus Jen personally. Like, I mean, how am I supposed to suck out of him if I fold?
Yeah, how are you going to do that otherwise? It's your
I
only
mean,
way.
how am I supposed to give him a bad beat if I fold? So, there's that.
Can't fold against Bluff Sterini. Can't do it.
That's right. How would you go home and tell your family about it? It doesn't. What just doesn't work.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm not good enough to fold. So.
And my family doesn't care, so it doesn't matter what I do.
You're free rolling on that one, Rob.
It's funny.
So
Well, that's cool.
This
Thanks,
is
Kim.
great.
That's a good an
And
education.
I
for me,
remember
too.
I showed you it. I wrote it down in the phone to remember.
Yeah.
To try and remember the hand, but you don't remember exactly what you had. So I remember what
No.
Elizabeth had because
Yeah.
she told me.
It's a real leak of mine, live play. I'm so used to most of my games
So if I
online.
do it, if I
and
write a hand down again, just write your hand down.
I will do that. I'll definitely do that. I'm just glad that I'm playing a balanced theoretical game between ace high flush draws and top two pair.
Yes,
Like
because you
that. That's the
totally
way to
did that on
balance it up
purpose.
there.
You definitely
Yeah.
did that on purpose. I mean, clearly. So I know this text is very small, and you almost definitely aren't able to make it out. But this kind of shows you uh, the entirety of what we're working on,
Mhm.
and you can see that 30 big blinds, 40 big blinds, 60 big blinds. We haven't even begun to work on small blind for 60 big blinds. And again, this all comes down to the enormity of the decision tree makes these so complicated that they're really time consuming to solve. And so once we start one, it's basically a month and a half to 2 months before you actually see one on the database. And that's the reason why we really focus on 40 big lines, 30 big lines, 25, 20, and so on, because we're tournament centric. We
Mhm.
care about tournament players right now the most. And because of that, we focus on those stat depths because very rarely are you 80 big lines, 100 big lines, 150 big lines deep in a tournament because most tournaments don't play that deep. Instead, you're much more often at that 30 big lines, 25 big lines. And,
Sure.
there's still a lot of post flop play that can and should take place even at those stat depths. And so we're hoping that by having access to this information, you know, you're finally able to start to realize that hey, you don't have to like play that Jan 25 big line pre-flop because guess what? You have a skill edge on your opponent and you want to try and get the most out of your chips.
Oh, don't tell people that, Kale. The only reason I'm making money in these games is because people are getting frisky with getting it in at 30 big blinds. Don't give all the good stuff away.
But
Do you think there would be a big difference in the outputs in that hand with say 50 big blind
no,
effective?
I don't because the problem is the small blind ranges, especially the peeling ranges, well, they are tapped, meaning you don't have a lot of like super strong hands because you see that most of them. They are relatively strong in that you
Right.
don't have a bunch of, very weak things. And so
Right.
because of that, GTO is going to want to cut control quite a bit, which means a fair amount of like um, check call one, check call two, maybe check raise turn, which we did see check raise turn at a pretty high frequency with ace jack there,
Hmm.
with
And do
the
you think
jack
we'd
of
see that
spades.
higher? Do you think we'd see it at a higher frequency with deeper stacks?
You would see it at a similar frequency, almost definitely. Like I said, we'll be able to know for sure after it's ran. But you're gonna see something very similar. What you might see is a shift toward ace high check raises and away from jack high check raises.
Yeah,
But
that's interesting.
that's probably the only major difference you'll see. And also, you'll find monotone boards, for the most part, are pretty, um, they're not super dynamic because it's hard for you to you either flush the flush or you have probably maybe like a bad flush draw. But the problem is that the number of combos goes way down as far as hands that change dramatically on a turn card. So the way I like to think about it is in two different ways: how dynamic is a board, and how lit is a board. So they're not the same thing, but they're related to each other. So dynamic is how often does the turn card dramatically change what the best hand possible is? Lit is how many draws are on the board. They're related, but they're not the same. There is a very clear difference. And when you think about board textures in that way, you can start to have a more robust betting strategy because now you're betting because, oh, hey, this is a very wet board, but there aren't a ton of turn cards that will dramatically change the outcome of the hand. So an example might be Jack 9-7. That's pretty wet, but the only Jack 9-7 two tone. That's pretty wet and it's pretty dynamic because now the best hand changes on any flush card that comes in. It changes on sevens, eights, nines, tens, and jacks, and queens. So all those cards change the best hand possible. A board that wouldn't be super dynamic would be Jack 9-7 monotone. So now the flush draw isn't as viable because there's far fewer unsuited combos that a player will continue with, depending on positions and whatnot, pre-flop than there are post-flop. So because of that, they either flat the flush or they didn't most of the time. Obviously they're outliers, but most of the time either flat the nuts or the near nuts, or you just have like two pairs, a single pair. So in that situation, the turn very often doesn't change the best hand possible. So it's not very dynamic, but it is somewhat wet in that there is a straight draw. There is three to a suit on the board. Um, so it can be kind of a difficult concept to like, hey, those things sound very similar and they sound like the same thing, but they're not exactly the same. And having the distinction is really important for a well-rounded C betting and term betting strategy. And honestly, Ryan does a way better job of explaining the concepts than I do. So for anybody who is a learn to program member, definitely look at some of the post-flop hand history videos where he talks about that, because he does a way better job of articulating the difference than I can. It's
And if
his concept. It's his concept. I just stole it.
And if you're not an LPP member, then why not again? Anyway, because you really should be. But if you're not, you are a Rec Poker Premium member because you're watching this video. So we also did a seminar with Chris Jones going over flop textures, board textures, and the difference between dynamic and wet and dry and static and that kind of thing. So there's some good learning material there too. And Kale nails it. It's crucial to developing as a player.
Absolutely. And like I said, it's kind of a weird concept because it sounds like they're the same,
Right.
but they're unique in their own way for lots of different reasons. And it's just one of those things that you kind of just have to like almost look at flips, like literally grab a deck of cards and start doing flips, and then asking yourself, where's this fall on the, you know, wet, dry, dynamic, static, cluster chart, and then, getting better just by practicing, basically.
It's true. Practicing. Ugh. Keith's got a question here. Is that spreadsheet available to RTP subscribers? I'm guessing the answer is hell no. You gotta like cozy on up to KL if you want to get this kind of backstage service here.
Yeah, so this is very much a under the hood look. We are we do have a public facing one, but it doesn't have everything on there because, well, to be honest with you, we like to under promise and over deliver.
Smart. Smart.
So, but I'll be updating that in the coming weeks with newer stats, and you'll be able to see in more detail what everything is. But we don't share this because it does have some, but you can't see it just by looking, but we do have some like intellectual property in here that we don't want to get out.
I've already hacked your computer through Zoom and I'm downloading this to my desktop as we speak. This is going to be on the Rec Poker homepage tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, this is only line
Oh,
one.
wow.
This
Okay.
is line 1 through 61, and there's like a few hundred lines of this, but this is like the IP of starting it out. So
Oh.
everybody get your screenshot.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
get like 5% of the data that you would
Yeah.
need to
Yeah.
copy what we do.
Then someone please explain to me what this means. This is all Greek to me anyway.
Yeah, that's kind of the point of the application, right? Is doing all of that is hard and time consuming and expensive. And we don't think that you should have to learn how to code a piece of software, basically, in order to study it better. So we made it, pretty self-explanatory. You can just point and click. I mean,
and I think that's the thing. That's what's most impressive about this, KL, is that you've got all this comprehensive information in there, but you've made it really easy for us to kind of cut it up and slice it up in different ways and to drill down into it in a very intuitive fashion. So I think that's the real art of this, is giving it to us in a way that we can just click and see and learn and compare, being able to compare things meaningfully. So hats off to you, man, because I don't think we don't have the time, the money, or the savvy to be solving all this stuff ourselves, or to be setting up the tree, or to be, even thinking about what are the right spots to solve. So being able to just like glimpse at it like this is huge. It's huge.
Yeah. And the last thing I'll mention is if you're wanting to study something just from a macro level, but you don't want to wait on the delay, what you can do is you can come in here and apply some filters. And as long as you have more than 20 flops, here we go. And here we go. So as long as you have more than 20 slots, which I don't anymore because I applied too many filters. So I'll do this. We'll say unpaired connected. In more than 20, you can just hit select random slot, and it's going to pick one of those slots at random and give it to you immediately. So there's no risk of using it in real time because the chance of you getting the slot that you actually need is almost non-existent. I mean, you have to run very big in order to get that. But if you want to understand like similar situations, like middling, really connected boards, like 986 and 987 two-tone are very similar boards. They're very, very you can apply the same strategy accurately in those situations. So you can really compare and contrast. And then the last thing is, if you want to, you can have more than one tab open.
Oh, and you can
add,
flip between them.
Yeah, just I mean, hey, I want to look at 30 big lines and 40 big lines. I don't remember what I picked. Man, I think it was cutoff versus button. That we'll do that. So mid high. So now it's gonna do 10 high and above two-tone unpaired boards. And you can see that, all right, well, in these situations, I want to do this. But in this situation, with this type of board texture, we do this. And I mean, you can, like, look at this.
So
I mean,
cool.
the king high board, big blind is never ever leaving. But with the king high board, they still are never leading, really. But they do have a small lead that's like 2% of the time. Yeah, sure, you'd never actually do that in game. But that's like something that's kind of interesting.
And we can extrapolate something from that, right? Like, why is it that it wants to use those hands, and how can we use that information in other circumstances? That I think that's the sexiest part about this whole thing.
Absolutely, and so that's really kind of neat that you can switch back and forth and draw some strategy information that way. But hopefully you guys got something out of this deep dive into Range Champ Pro. I always enjoy going through all of this, looking at stuff. I learned something every single time. Obviously, it's a joy to know that, hey, at least some people are getting something out of it. And obviously, we already have one bracelet winner who is a member, and she was so kind. She pulled me aside and said, I would not have won this bracelet if it wasn't for Range Shampoo. And I almost cried because it was super cool to
That was
hear.
amazing. That's awesome.
But the hope is that this summer we add 2 or 3 more to the
There you
roster.
go. That's
and
right.
It should be one of you guys.
I think so. I agree, Kale. I think it should be one of us. Let's get a Rec
Absolutely.
Poker RTP bracelet event up there. I think we could get our
Maybe
brains around
2.
that. Why not 2?
Absolutely.
Tag team.
Absolutely.
Tag team. Just saying. Never know. Never know. We each get a bracelet from what I've heard. It's not like you have to share the bracelet, like, you get it on the weekends and I get it over the summer kind of thing. No. 2 bracelets.
It'd be amazing. I look
be.
forward to it. But
All
thank
right.
you very much for inviting me in, guys. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, we could have taken another 90 minutes, I think. So I appreciate your time and going through this. I know it's as much fun for you as it is for us, showing off this fantastic stuff. And people, remember that deal is on till Friday. I'll put this video out on YouTube tonight so folks can get a chance to check it out too. Use that code capital R, capital P, Rec Poker 20 and get yourself a sweet little discount. And we'll be talking to Kale again, I'm sure, in the coming months, and as we all get ready for WSOP and whatever else is on the horizon. So thank you again, my friend, and to everyone else, and we'll see you all again sometime real soon.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
All right, have a good night.